Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Hope you're doing just fine, and welcome to lecture 3 about the advanced sequence. So far, you should have gotten the bigger sequence, right? You should have gotten the understanding of the breathing rooms, the inefficient one, the efficient one. You should understand the failed two, and you should understand the successful two. What makes an inefficient sequence, essentially? What makes a successful and proficient sequence as well. You understand these points. And I'm pretty sure, based on what you're seeing already right now, that you have gotten a deeper understanding of price already. As a matter of fact, now when you've studied all this to a very deep degree, here's my question to you. Do you watch market structure anymore? If you think about it, do you watch market structure in the same way anymore? Pretty crazy, right? At this stage, you stop essentially more and more watching the market structure. You're counting to five. Where am I counting to five? You're starting to leave the past of price and jumping into the expectation of the future of price and the current. And what we are working on right now is really understanding the current. The future part is going to be on a deeper level as we go on with the sequence. But for today's lecture, we're going to talk about the advanced sequence. Now, the advanced sequence is something that might be a bit confusing because it's sort of an intro also to the very things that I'm watching to utilize price at all times, any time of day, all time frames, understanding some tiny rules and stuff that holds me accountable to when I'm trading. Um, but essentially, we're starting to tap into slower and steady into how I take my trades, how I enter them, how I exit them, what I look at, how I incorporate the multi time frame sequence into the mix of just seeing one sequence. Because at the end of the day, you will not as much just see one sequence. But to really understand price, you need to understand when it turns around. You need to understand where the shit show is located at. You need to understand the smaller time frame sequences that are playing out inside the bigger ones. Now that's multi-time frame sequence. So we're starting to tap into many different areas in which we're going to discuss further on as well. And it's important that we tap into these topics prior to actually jumping deep into it, right? If I'm able to burn this into your brain, that's perfect. And we burn it into your brain by simply repeating the process over and over, starting to talk a little bit about it, and then jumping in 1 week. We're tapping into one topic, right? And then you might go back to this lecture 3 video, watch that again, and then we're jumping into a different topic the week after. So that's what I want you guys to do. All right. But for now, let's jump into the advanced sequence lecture. Let me jump right into the charts here. All right. So what you should have gotten to this point is this. This is your understanding, right? We understand the breathing room. We understand that price goes down to sweep it to create a potential 2, which many people call the P2. P for potential 2 prior to running that high, right? Um, and this would be the P1, right? In before this move happened. So let me actually do this for y'all, so it gets really simple to understand. P2, P1, P3, right? Sweeping that breathing room, you understand where the breathing room is at. It runs higher. It's no longer a potential 2, it's an actual 2. No longer a potential 1, it's an actual 1. No longer a potential 3, it's actually a 3, right? You understand this to this point. You also understand that if we run that low, then we essentially have what? The 4 and 5, right? 4 and 5. And that is either going to run this high or run itself, right? This is what you understand. This is the efficient sequence again. The inefficient sequence looks exactly like this. It's already done right here because that's when the two is created, a bullish two, right? The bullish move of, from the two going up. That's why it's called the bullish sequence because the two wants to go higher. And then we're now looking to run back into the two, which means that this leads to one of the strongest PYs in the market, which is the shit show level, right? Inefficient, efficient. Goes both ways. So you can essentially say this when the 4 and 5 is not created, it's an inefficient sequence. That's essentially the easy thing to it all, right? Um, so this is what you have understood so far. You have understood breathing rooms. You know where to look in the market. You know where it's going to be created. You have sort of in that way an expectation of price. Isn't that right? You have an expectation of something to happen. And when you have that expectation, it's easier to predict the future because you have different ways of doing it. So you are essentially starting to predict what is going to happen next in terms of where are we moving, right? Um, in all honesty, at the end of the day, I am the person that feels like feels like it's disgusting to see that people are talking about you cannot predict the market. That does not make any sense for me. And the reason why is because when you are taking a trade, is price moving forward as time is? Yes, right? You're not taking a trade and it all immediately goes to target. It doesn't go to target prior to after you enter your trade. That doesn't make any sense. So every single one in the market is trying to predict the future of price. Every single person that is trading the markets and are operating on the markets, they are trying to understand the future. Every single one. But the crazy thing here is that these people also love to say that you cannot predict price. How can you not predict price? That's the exact thing you are trying to do. You are a day trader. If you're a day trader, you are trying to predict price. If you are looking to invest long term, you are trying to predict the future of that long term investment. So it's very disgusting to me, and it's actually cringe when people say you cannot predict the market. Just utilize your edge. But your edge is trying to predict the market, man. So that doesn't make any sense. But what I'm trying to say here is that this very shit show sequence that you have in front of you right here, this is the new thing in this industry and it's going to take over market structure. Market structure will be in the past. I can promise you that with everything I have, that this is what everybody will be utilizing on the back end of understanding their own model. So I believe and I really think that this is going to take over the entire industry. And especially for the people that put in the work and that have the IQ to do it as well. Some types of autism in there would be great as well. But this is essentially how we utilize it, right? Um, so let's jump into a either inefficient or a efficient sequence. Sorry. Um, when we are watching price from this manner, when price moves below that low, now we're gonna start to tap into some sort of multi-time frame sequence here. Trying not to confuse you as much. We understand that this right here is the breathing room, right? Meaning this area needs to be swept. Whenever we look to sweep this area, which is down here, we create a potential, right? We are sort of getting the idea of this price action wants to go up here. Meaning it's not yet a P2, but or an actual two, but it's looking to potentially become one, right? So this is setting yourself up for success if you're noting it down as a P2 prior to it actually reaching this high. And if that's the P2, then this would have to be the P1, right? What we need to understand in this case is that what is happening down here then, Jay? And what are the rules behind the sequence? How many candles does it have to be? How does it turn around? What does it look like? I will tell you this. When you zoom into price on the lower time frames in this potential 2, you will many times see this pattern. Either that, or you will see this, and then you might look for a long in here instead. Yeah, that's about it. Those two you can see here. And what you have here is, remember the failed 2? Price sweeps a breathing room, goes up, tries to go lower, but sweeps itself. Remember that from the previous lecture? We try to go down, but we cannot. So it shifts the perspective here. And then price runs down here to create that to go higher. Right? In this case, to the right here, we have the same coming from this white line, right? Imagine that. So you have that 2, you have this 3, you have that 1, you have that 4 and 5, and that usually goes to bounce into the 1 bounce which is sitting in here. Talk about that later. And so 4 and 5 now is telling you what? Bullish, right? Because price ran itself on the 4 and 5, which tells you direction, which means the next sequence should be a 2. This is your long right here, and this is your long right here. So what you have here is suddenly a different scenario, isn't it? Because now you have the sequence, the shit show sequence, potentially created, and you will utilize the smaller time frames to turn around. And guess what? Where it's turning around, there will be a sequence. Here's a key point here, brothers and sisters. Every single turning point in the entire market of in the entire timeline since the beginning of the existence of the stock trading market, there has been a sequence at every turning point. 100% of every single turning point in the market is operating in this way. What does this mean for you? Well, what it simply means is that you can predict price at all times of day, every single tick, every single movement in price, you can predict it. And let me even be more clear. You can predict the future expectation of price. Now, it would be dumb for me to say that in terms of a selling point, right? Inside, after you have joined up for the 6-week program right here, that will put a lot of pressure on my shoulders. But guess what? It doesn't, because that's how I'm utilizing it. You'll see me catch the longest of longest moves with 1 tick stop. Because I understand when it turns around. You understand that when we sweep this very low right here, that low, you understand, okay, wait a second, Jay. We are now in a big 2. Perfect. Let me see what happens within that big 2. There's going to be this very sequence in one way or another to tell you that we are going higher. It can be through the F2. It can be to create that 2. It can be the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to go higher. And there you go. Now you understand what is when it's going to turn around to the specific points. There's two different scenarios here. Let me actually get rid of this stuff so it doesn't get way too confusing. I even deleted my own name here. Um, Let me get rid of this. That, 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 this, and this. All right. So what we're seeing here are actually two different sequences of the same, but through different time frames. So now you have this bigger situation, right? Inside here, you have this smaller one. This smaller sequence right in here looks exactly like this. Now look at this. Doesn't this look awfully a lot like the same thing right here? And let me do this. Because in here, you will have this. So suddenly you have this situation into this situation into this situation. This right here, my friends, is multi-time frame sequence. And what does make the difference for all of these three? Well, they are very small, right? So what we tend to look at here is that this right here is the shit show sequence, right? It's the very sequence that I've come out with. I've talked about to a bunch of people, and I've shown it on X. I have a whole, my entire YouTube videos on YouTube are about the shit show sequence. What these people do not know is that there are multi-time frame sequence that ties everything together. That's what makes it powerful. It understands all time frames at the same time where everything is correlating to one big story. I'm talking everything to a specific point is aligned at for a few seconds here and there, and everything aligns perfectly. You're part of that move. So in this instance, we have that shit show sequence, and this usually surrounds about a specific amount of candles to follow up with. Now, I will say that I've created these guidelines only for the people in the group because they had a problem with understanding and seeing the correct time frames, what belongs to what time frame. So this is an outline just to help out to understand these different time frames, essentially these different sequences on different time frames. Now, over time, the ideal goal is for you to understand what is a shit show sequence just by looking at it, what is an ISS just by looking at it, and what is a CBC just by looking at it, and what is a tick chart just by looking at it. That's the ideal goal over time. Because when you can do that, you can read four different time frames at the same time. You basically put everything in your advantage through different time frames just from reading one single chart. Um, so this is sort of a guidance, slow and steady, and it's not very, very objective. It's kind of more subjective here. All right, it's kind of we're trying to get you into that flow state of understanding. Oh, this looks like this. This looks like that. So a shit show sequence usually goes for about 10, usually goes for about 10 plus candles, right? The ISS is about 4 to 7 or 8. Now you're saying, but that doesn't make any sense, Jay, because that's 10 candles roughly. And if the next step is the SS level or SS sequence after the ISS sequence, then you have a gap of the two candles here. You know, then the 8 and the 9er, right? Yes. And that's because sometimes the ISS, based on what it looks like, it can be an actual shit show level. But sometimes the shit show level, we can have 9 candles and it looks perfectly like an ISS, even though it's not part of the ISS, right? So it's sort of, again, subjective. What does it look like? This is, again, an outline of under just getting your mind to understand what time frame is this coming from? Based on what is this coming from, right? So this is not set in stone. The only thing that is set in stone is the CBC, and that comes into here. Now, this is not something I've taught um, to the public whatsoever. And this is how I take all my entries. I take it with one different thing, and we'll go over that in the future. And we'll have a specific lecture about CBC as well. CBC stands for candle by candle. Yes, we're counting sequences by each and every single goddamn candle there is in the market. We can watch it to see when it turns around. It gets crazy because you know what? I'm gonna save that for the CBC lecture. You know, I just get too excited when I start to speak about these things because it's so freaking powerful. CBC is 3 candles. So as you may see, that shit show level into the ISS into the CBC, we have different amount of candles. Just because we need to understand what does it look like, we need to wrap our minds around what does a sequence look like based on what time frame. It's very, very important that we do these things because that will help you understand how to get into trades through different types of time frames. For example, CBC is much more tied to the shit show model or the shit show sequence, and the tick charts is way more tied to the ISS rather than the SS sequence. So the different time frames, right? So what we have here is this is essentially the 1 second chart. This is essentially the 5 second chart, and this is essentially the 15 second chart, right? And this is the mother of all time frames, I usually say, the 15 second chart. Now, some people are like, "Now, what do you mean 15 second chart is mother of all time frames?" That's only because I back tested and forward tested tens of thousands of trades, tens of thousands of scenarios. So I'm pretty sure I know what I'm looking at. I'm still seeing it to this day. You know, some people in the group, or not anymore, but they used to. Now they're gotten very profitable and are very good at what they're doing. So, because suddenly they decided to actually listen and accept what I told them, right? They went out the shit route just because they were like, no, I'm gonna figure this stuff. I'm gonna look at this, which is fine, right? That's how we all grow. But um, at the end of the day, they were up in the higher time frames and such to utilize those things. Specifically, one student of mine who was very very good at watching and understanding price, right? And he actually found a way to utilize the high time frames as well inside the focus group, right? Um, but what is important here is that suddenly at the end of the day, you're going to realize that the strongest POY levels, the twos from the 15-second chart, that is what the market is around, specifically for the intraday trading style. So it's better just to accept what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying in the beginning. And then as you get better and better, then you can start to experiment with things. Yeah. So essentially what we have here is a bunch of messy squiggly lines and stuff. But this right here is sort of the intro to multi-time frame sequence. And I will show you this as well. When we're watching price, right? This is how it's important to understand where we should start to count for the amount of candles, because you're going to run into that problem real fast. Where do we start the count on the amount of candles to sort of get the idea and understand how we are going to utilize these very different time frames and understand where they're coming from? You know, if we start to count it from here, it's going to be less amount of candles. But if we start to count from here, it's going to be more amount of candles. So where do we start? We always start at the beginning. Sorry, apologies. At the beginning of the breathing room, right? At the beginning of the breathing room, that gets swept, which means we start to count the amount of candles from here all the way till we start to turn around, right? So we count everything inside of here. That will be the measurement for the amount of candles on each specific one. So you always start again the count from this area to this area. That's your measurement. Why? Don't ask me why on that, because it's just the way it goes. So this is how we utilize these things essentially. Now, in the upcoming lecture, not lecture, but actually the advanced sequence video that you will have add on to this, I'll go into deeper and more things about more or less CBCs and stuff. You can take it a bit easy with that if you want to. I'm gonna talk a bit about it, but what I'm looking to do over time here is essentially have a specific lecture about CBCs as well. So there's going to be a lot of complicated things in that because they are pretty much advanced at that point. But I will say that these are the things that are going to have a specific lecture about it later on. All right. So take it easy with those things. What I wanted to show you essentially here is what I've shown on X before. And something that I've showed many times. Um, and it's my favorite chart pattern of all time. And it goes just like this. And now you'll start to see the explanation of it. For example, in here. Right, let's do actually this. Now, since we have gone over the sequences, the breathing rooms and stuff, now you'll understand these points that I made on X like 9-10 months ago, right? Even longer. It might have been even longer than that. But if we have that 2, for example, that's the 3 and that's the 1, right? That means that this is the 4 and 5. But since we understand that every 2 is also a 4 and 5. Why? Because let's go back at this, right? We have this, right? So that 2, if that succeeds to go higher, then we might have our run on that low again. And then into this high, and then into that low, into this high, right? It goes on forever. It's this never-ending triangle. It just goes on forever. So the same thing here is multi-time frame sequence goes into that is also a 2, which means that if that's the 2, that's the 3, right? That is also the 1. But if that is the 2, that must mean on the lower time frames that this right here is the form 5, which means that that is a 3, and that is a 2, and that is a 1. Did you just see that I read price backwards here? There is a reason why I did that, and it was to show you that I can read price backwards. And with this model, you will be able to read price backwards from what? Yeah, that's right. Why would you need to read price backwards? You can literally read price without it ever being there based on the current. So before price is doing something over here, you can understand that that's going to be the 4 and 5, and you can note this down here that that's going to be the 3, and that's going to be the 2 then, right? So you read price backwards based on what is happening here, and you can find the smallest and smallest of trades. In the same way, you can read it like this. You will have a 2 here, and then you might have a smaller inside 2 here, right? ISS. So SS2, right? We can actually do it in a very good manner here, so you really understand it. And now we have a smaller sequence 2, and inside there we have a smaller sequence 2, and inside there we have a smaller sequence 2. Do you see it? This is what we have just done today, this very specific area of price. Bigger sequence 2, smaller sequence 2, which is this, smaller sequence 2, which is this, and it can go on forever until the very last price point. Your target is always sitting, for example, up here. And if you were to take this long down here, your stop would have been down here, right? And your target would have been essentially the 1-to-1, which would be looking like this. Something like this, right? This would have been your trade. But now you can do this. Oh, so now we have a new 2. Now that's our entry. And this is our stop, but our target remains the same, right? Oh, but now we have a new 2 in here. But our target remains the same. Oh, now we have a new 2. But the target remains the same. Now we went from a 1-to-1 R to a 17 R trade right there. Just by doing that. And we're catching a smaller move, a tighter move, a more explosive move. It happens very, very, very fast. Instead of sitting there for hours upon hours and 15-minute trades. No, my trades usually go for 3 minutes because I know the exact point where it explodes. Believe it or not, but I hate being in drawdown. It sucks ass. It really does. And everybody that says I'm fine with drawdown, I'm okay with sitting in a losing, I'm still gonna hold until I either win or take a loss. No, you're stupid. Everybody would like to see no drawdown, just tap and go and explode. Everybody. Because now you don't have to, in any way or form, sit there for a long period of time. You can know and wait for the exact moment where it has to give an explosion away from. And that's how simple it will be. Because at the end of the day, if you're sitting on a long from this point to go higher into this high, what is happening is, if that happens, isn't that a fail too? Well, guess what, buddy? The ever never ending triangle, doesn't this look like this? Two, two, and then it doesn't reach up there, and then it moves lower. So you're catching the trades within my model at the very points where the decision has to be made. And if you put that in your favor, you'll have a huge percent win rate. If you really understand what you're doing, you will have a huge percent win rate and a quick move and a huge R move. All the time. This is the reality of trading. This is the reality of my model behind the scenes, right? This is how we understand the different time frames, the different movements, how we utilize it to the best of the degree that we can. The market can be this simple. Count to the number of five, which is actually count to four numbers because the four and five is the same number. This stuff is very, very powerful. Very powerful. And I really want you to understand that. So, what I want you to do for the upcoming period of time here, you've now potentially gone over 300 sequences, and I really hope you have. Um, because that's what's gonna set you up for success in the future. Because this time, what we're gonna do is you're gonna do now, and I'm gonna put a lot of pressure on you. You're gonna do 1,000 sequences. It's the same stuff that these successful, profitable traders on the inside of the focus group. That's what they did, and believe it or not, but every single one of them wished they would have had gone harder because many of them had to go back into the information again because they got stuck with some small problems. As a matter of fact, the absolute best of the best in my group, one of the most important parts that they all have mentioned was looking at breathing rooms. How does that make sense? With all this information, everything that is out here, every single one of the most profitable traders in my group say that the breathing rooms are such a powerful lecture that you have no idea. And what it boils down into is my very famous quote of the more you know, the more you will know. So when you understand all of this and go back to breathing rooms, then you will realize more things about them that you just can't comprehend right now because your mind doesn't have the knowledge about it, right? So when you have gathered more knowledge about the sequences, go back to the breathing rooms, it's going to explode your brain. So I want you to do that in the future as well. But 1,000 sequences in the actual homework that I'm giving you, I give you that for a reason. I give you that stuff to push you so you can actually evolve faster than everybody else. And isn't that what you're looking to do? This is called the 6-week program. Weeks, not months, week, which means you're going to have to do a lot of hard work, more than everybody else. And this is the stuff, right? Um, so 1,000 sequences is actually doable, especially when you understand there's smaller sequences on there as well. What I also tend to say to my focus group is that I love to see that everybody feels like they have fallen behind. Everybody feels like they are behind. To create a really, really good group of people that are really pushing themselves at all times, you need to make sure that everybody feels behind. They have to catch up to something. And then I actually want you, each and every single one of you, listening to my voice right at this moment, to feel like I need to catch up to Jay. That's your only goal. You don't compare yourself to this guy or that guy or this guy or that guy because I know that I'm going 1,000 times the speed than everybody else. So if you are even close to me, you're just going to be straight, locked on, laser eyed focus on how fast I am going, which is going to lead into that you're going to soon enough go at the same speed as I am. And before you know it, you're going to pass everybody at super speeds. That's why you're seeing people on the inside of the group grabbing 30 Rs in 1 week and saying, I'm not satisfied. That's why you're seeing one of the guys, Rena, for example, who's had 2 months of green days in a row and still saying, I need to keep on working on my stuff. Not good enough is what he's saying. Can you imagine? Like, I've seen his results. Can you imagine sitting at 2 months of green days and saying, I'm not good enough yet. I need to work harder. I need to push myself harder. Believe it. Who is going to pass that guy? Nobody. Nobody can even compare themselves to that guy outside of the group. We have people pulling in 80 Rs in 1 week and saying, not good enough. I need to perform better. I need to work on this more. This was a really bad trade. But I took 100 good ones, but this was a really bad trade. I need to step up my game. Holy smokes. These people are freaking dangerous in the markets. They're coming to grab everybody's stop loss at that point. Literally. And that's because they set a standard for themselves. I'm going to become better than my mentor himself, better than my teacher himself, better than the creator of this entire system himself. The only way to do it is have high standards, a lot of freaking pressure, a lot of things to do. You should always feel behind. So if you feel behind now, 1,000 sequences, you're like already, how is that possible? Definitely possible. You're just gonna have to sit way more, less amounts of sleep. Don't have much time to sit and watch a freaking disgusting movie like a loser. You have to prioritize your time. It's absolutely doable because everybody has done it. And a matter of fact, the people on the inside of the group, I kick people out if they don't. If they're slacking, even for 1 second, they don't even get a second chance. You're out. See you later. I can't handle people that are not willing to put in the work. You're not worth my time. You're not even worth your own time. So you decide right now, you made one decision to join up for the 6 week program, and I'm not here to sugarcoat shit. I don't care if I hurt your ego. My goal is to make you a good trader understanding my model. So you make a decision. Leave already, do something else, or actually put in the work. This is what I've told everybody. Everybody said they were going to put in the work, but then they didn't. They couldn't handle the pressure. I kicked them out. They got the boot. I'm looking to create the best of the best. It's that simple. It's that freaking simple. And to do that, I'm not looking to hurt. I'm not looking to somewhat at the end of the day not hurt your ego. If that's what's necessary, if that's what needs to happen. You're here for a reason. Absolutely amazing that I get to show you my model and stuff. Yeah, great stuff. But at the end of the day, I'm looking to create good traders and not befriend people. I want you as a colleague and somebody that can challenge me in the future. That's what I'm looking to create, not some other bullshit. All right. So we get that straight. It's straight to the point. No sugarcoating. Get the shit done. Watch the other video as well. Get started with drawing out sequences. Those things will be burned into your brain. The more you do it, the more you will know. And the more you will know, the better you will become. It's that simple. So, with that said, people, I hope you have a wonderful week of back testing, forward testing, 1,000 sequences. You could do 3,000 if you want to as well. It's up to you. Don't stop just at, yes, I reached 1,000. Great stuff. No, that's when you say, now the reps that I put in really start to show progress. Just letting you know. And I hope that you feel very much behind because, as cheesy as it is, but pressure really does form diamonds. And I'm a living proof of it. The people on the inside are living proof of it. 2 months of green days, 80 hours a week, and still looking to progress. They're going to be the best in the industry. So you found yourself in a really, really, really good spot here, brother. Good stuff. Talk to you soon and enjoy your back testing. See you around.